I'm Ellen, 67 years old, living in a quiet little house on the edge of a small Ohio town. My husband Tom and I have been married for 42 years. That's a lifetime, isn't it? Most of those years, Tom's been on the road driving trucks cross country. He's a good man, steady kind in his own way. But somewhere along the line, our marriage turned into something else. We're not fighting or bitter. It's just quiet, like two people sharing a house, not a life. I make his coffee in the morning. He kisses my forehead before bed, but it's been years since he really looked at me. Not the way he used to when we were young, and I felt like the only woman in the world. That night, the house was quieter than usual. Tom was gone somewhere in Nebraska, hauling a load of furniture. It was late, maybe 11, and I was sitting in the living room with a cup of chamomile tea, the kind that's supposed to calm you, but never quite does. The wind outside was restless, rattling the windows, and I was half listening to the hum of the refrigerator when everything went dark. The power cut out sudden and complete, leaving me in a blackness so thick it felt like it had weight. I fumbled for my phone, but the battery was dead typical. I wasn't scared. Not really, just annoyed. Power outages weren't uncommon out here, especially in stormy weather. But being alone in the dark always made me feel smaller than I like to admit. I shuffled to the kitchen, feeling my way along the counter for the flashlight we kept in the junk drawer. My fingers brushed against old receipts, a pair of scissors, a tangle of rubber bands, but no flashlight. I sighed, leaning against the counter. And that's when I heard it, a knock at the door. Sharp, deliberate cutting through the silence like a blade. My heart jumped not out of fear, but surprise. Who'd be out here at this hour, in this weather? I stood still, waiting, hoping it was just a branch against the porch. But then it came again, louder, more insistent. I crept to the front door, my bare feet cold against the hardwood. The peephole was useless in the dark, so I called out, "Who's there?" My voice sounded thinner than I meant it to, like it belonged to someone else. "Ellen." "It's Mike," came the reply, low and familiar. Mike Larson, my son's old high school football coach. I hadn't seen him in months, not since Danny's last game senior year. He lived a few streets over, still a big name in town. The kind of man everyone respected, charismatic, always quick with a smile. I opened the door a crack, and there he was, standing on my porch, his jacket damp from the drizzle, holding a flashlight that cast a soft glow across his face. "Everything okay?" he asked, his eyes searching mine. "Saw your lights go out, figured I'd check on you." His voice was warm, steady, the kind that made you feel looked after. I hesitated, then opened the door wider. "I'm fine, just caught off guard. Come in, it's wet out there." He stepped inside, shaking the rain from his hair, and I caught a faint whiff of his cologne, something woodsy and clean. It was strange having him there in my dim, silent house. Strange, but not unwelcome. I led him to the kitchen, where I lit a couple of candles from the drawer. Their flickering light made the room feel smaller, more intimate than I expected. "Power's out all down the street," Mike said, setting his flashlight on the counter. "Might be a while." I nodded, trying to ignore the way my pulse hadn't quite settled since he'd knocked. "Want some tea?" I asked, mostly to fill the silence. He smiled that easy boyish grin that made him look younger than his 40-something years. "Sure, if it's no trouble." As I boiled water on the gas stove, we talked small things at first. How Danny was doing at college, how the team was shaping up this season. Mike had a way of making you feel like you were the only person in the room. His eyes locked on yours, his laugh low and genuine. I found myself relaxing, even laughing a little, something I hadn't done in weeks. But then, as I handed him his tea, his fingers brushed mine, just for a second, and he didn't pull away. His gaze lingered, not on the cup, but on me, and I felt a warmth I hadn't known I was missing. "You're holding up okay, Ellen?" he asked, his voice softer now, almost careful. Being out here all alone, I froze the question, catching me off guard. Alone. The word hung in the air, heavy with something I couldn't name. I forced a smile, the kind I'd perfected over years of saying I was fine when I wasn't. "I manage," I said, turning to rinse a spoon I didn't need to wash, but my hands were trembling, and I knew he saw it. I didn't expect that moment to shift something inside me, to wake a part of me I'd buried long ago. And I didn't expect Mike Larson, of all people, to be the one to do it. I stood at the sink, staring at the candle's reflection in the window, and felt his presence behind me, steady and close. Too close, maybe, but I didn't move. I couldn't. Not yet. The night stretched out before us, dark and endless, and I wondered what it would mean if I turned around. The candlelight flickered across the kitchen, casting shadows that danced on the walls, like secrets too restless to stay still. Mike sat at the table, his tea untouched, his eyes following me as I moved from the sink to the counter, pretending to tidy things that didn't need tidying. I could feel the weight of his gaze, not heavy but warm, like a hand resting lightly on my shoulder. It had been so long since anyone looked at me that way, really saw me, that I didn't know whether to lean into it or run. My heart was a traitor, beating too fast, telling me I was alive, in a way I hadn't been in years. We kept talking, though the words felt like a thin veil over something else. He asked about the house, the garden I'd let go to weeds, the way I spent my days, now that Danny was off at college. His voice was low, steady, pulling me in like a tide. "You've always seemed so strong, Ellen," he said, leaning forward, his elbows on the table. "Holding everything together out here." I laughed, a brittle sound that didn't quite reach my eyes. "Strong's just what people call you when you don't have a choice," I said, and the truth of it stung more than I expected. He tilted his head, studying me. "You don't give yourself enough credit." His words were soft, but they landed hard, stirring something deep in my chest. When was the last time someone said something like that? Tom used to, back when we were young, when he'd slip his arm around my waist and whisper that I was his. Everything. Now, his compliments were practical. Good dinner. Nice job with the laundry. I didn't realize how much I'd missed being seen until Mike's words cracked open that longing. I turned to the counter, busying myself with the candle, adjusting its wick as if it needed my attention. His chair scraped softly against the floor, and I knew he'd stood up. My breath caught, but I didn't turn around. "Your flashlight's out of batteries, isn't it?" he asked, his voice closer now. I nodded, still facing the counter, my fingers tightening around the cold metal of the dead flashlight I'd found earlier. "Let me take a look," he said, and before I could answer, he was beside me, his shoulder brushing mine as he reached for it. He was too close. I could smell that woodsy cologne again, feel the warmth of him in the chilly kitchen. My skin prickled, not with fear, but with something I didn't want to name. He opened the flashlight, his fingers deft and sure, and I watched them move, mesmerized by how capable they seemed. "You've got to have the right touch with these things," he said, glancing at me with a half smile, gentle but firm. The words hung in the air, and I felt my cheeks flush, grateful for the dim light hiding it. I stepped back just a fraction, trying to reclaim some space, but my body didn't want to move far. "You don't have to do that," I said, my voice quieter than I meant. "It's no trouble," he replied, his eyes meeting mine, holding them a moment too long. "I like helping you, Ellen." There it was again, that warmth, that pull. I wanted to tell him to stop, to go, but my throat felt tight, and the words wouldn't come. The silence stretched thick and heavy, broken only by the faint hiss of the candle. He set the flashlight down now, working with fresh batteries he'd pulled from his pocket, and his hand brushed mine as he handed it back. I flinched, but I didn't pull away. His touch lingered, not overt, but enough to make my pulse race. "You're shivering," he said. His voice so soft, it was almost a whisper. "Are you cold?" I wasn't, but I nodded anyway, because it was easier than admitting the truth that I was trembling because of him, because of how he made me feel noticed, wanted alive. I turned away, clutching the flashlight like a lifeline, and moved to the window, staring out at the black night. The rain had stopped, but the world outside felt far away, like it belonged to someone else. Behind me, Mike spoke again. "You deserve better than this, you know. Being out here alone waiting." His words were a knife cutting through years of quiet acceptance. I wanted to argue, to defend my life, my marriage, but part of me, the part that had been ignored for so long, whispered that he was right. I don't know how long we stood there, the space between us shrinking with every breath. He stepped closer, and I felt the air shift, charged with something dangerous and intoxicating. "Ellen," he said. And the way he said my name, like it was something precious, made my heart ache. I turned to face him, and he was right there, close enough that I could see the flecks of gray in his eyes, the lines around his mouth that made him look both strong and vulnerable. "You're still beautiful," he said, and I froze, the words sinking into me like rain into dry earth. No one had called me beautiful in decades. My mind screamed to step back, to end this, but my body wouldn't move. I was caught teetering on the edge of something I couldn't name. His hand reached out, hovering near my arm, not touching, but close enough to feel its warmth. "Are you happy?" he asked. And the question was a wound, raw and open. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. I didn't know. I hadn't let myself ask that in years. If you're still with me, I'd love for you to hit that like button and subscribe. It means so much to share this story with you. Let me know in the comments. If you've ever felt this kind of moment, where everything hangs in the balance. I stood there, my heart pounding, and I knew whatever happened next would change me. Mike's eyes searched mine, waiting, and I felt the pull stronger, now urging me to step closer, to let go. His hand moved, just a fraction, and I didn't stop it. In that moment, I wasn't sure I wanted to. The kitchen felt too small, the world too quiet, and all I could hear was my own heartbeat telling me I was still here, still a woman, still capable of wanting more. The kitchen was a cocoon of candlelight, the shadows curling around us like they were holding their breath. Mike stood so close I could feel the warmth of him, his hand hovering near my arm. His question, "Are you happy?" still echoing in my head. My heart pounded, a wild, reckless thing, and for a moment, I let myself imagine it stepping into that warmth, letting his hand find mine, letting myself be seen, truly seen, for the first time in years. The pull was intoxicating, like a sip of wine after years of water. But beneath it, something sharper stirred: guilt, fear, the weight of 42 years with Tom. I took a step back, small but deliberate, and the air between us shifted cooler now, like a door cracking open. Mike's hand fell to his side, and his eyes, Those gray-flecked eyes that had held me captive softened with something like understanding. "Ellen," he said, his voice low. "I didn't mean to." He stopped, as if he wasn't sure what he meant. Or maybe he knew exactly, and didn't want to say it. I clutched the flashlight tighter, its cold metal grounding me, and forced myself to meet his gaze. "You should go." I said the words trembling but firm. They surprised me how steady they sounded when inside I was a storm. He nodded, slow and careful, like he was giving me space to change my mind. "If that's what you want," he said, and the way he said it, gentle but heavy, made me wonder if he saw right through me, saw the part of me that didn't want him to leave. I turned away toward the sink, busying my hands with a dishcloth, anything to keep from looking at him. The floor creaked as he moved toward the door, and I heard the soft rustle of his jacket as he picked it up. "Take care, Ellen," he said. And then he was gone, the door clicking shut behind him, leaving the house emptier than before. I stood there staring at the sink, the candle's flame flickering like it was mocking me. My hands shook as I set the dishcloth down, and I sank into a chair, the weight of what had just happened or hadn't happened crashing over me. I felt like I'd been standing on the edge of a cliff, toes curling over the drop, and somehow I'd stepped back. But the ground beneath me didn't feel solid anymore. I pressed my hands to my face, trying to steady my breathing. And that's when the tears came quiet and hot, not for Mike, but for me. For the woman I'd let myself become, someone who could be swayed by a kind word, a lingering look because she'd been starving for them. The power came back on an hour later, the lights buzzing to life, harsh and unforgiving. I blew out the candle and sat in the glare, feeling exposed. Mike's words played in my mind. "You're still beautiful. You deserve better." They were a gift and a poison, making me feel alive, but leaving a bitter aftertaste. I thought of Tom out there in Nebraska, driving through the night, unaware that his wife had almost crossed a line. He wasn't perfect, but he was mine and I was his, even if we'd forgotten how to show it. I wondered when we'd stop trying, when I'd started fading into the background of my own life. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at the kitchen table, the flashlight beside me, its beam steady now thanks to Mike. I thought about calling Tom, telling him everything. But what would I say? That I'd let a man make me feel something I shouldn't have? That I'd wanted to be noticed so badly? I almost forgot who I was. Instead, I made coffee at dawn, the familiar ritual grounding me. And when Tom called later that day, his voice tired but warm, I didn't tell him. I just listened, really listened to the way he said my name, and I promised myself I'd try harder to bridge the gap between us. Looking back, that night was a wake-up call, not just about Mike, but about me. I'd been living like a shadow, accepting the quiet, the loneliness, as if it was all I deserved. Mike saw me, yes, but what he offered was a fleeting thing, a spark that would have burned out and left me with nothing. I didn't need his attention to feel alive. I needed to remember who I was, who I still could be. I started small, after that, planting flowers in the garden again, calling Danny just to talk, even asking Tom to take a weekend off so we could drive to the lake like we used to. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. If you felt something like this, a moment where you almost lost yourself, but found your way back, I'd love for you to share it in the comments. Hit that like button and subscribe if this story touched you. It means the world to know you're out there listening. I don't regret that night, not exactly. It showed me how easy it is to be swayed when you feel forgotten, how one look can wake something you thought was dead. But it also taught me something I'll carry forever. No one deserves to be a stranger in their own home, least of all you. Guard your heart, not because temptation is evil, but because what you already have might be worth saving. I never told Tom, and I never saw Mike again. Not like that. But sometimes, when the house is too quiet, I think of that night, and I'm grateful not for what almost happened, but for what I chose instead. I chose me, and in doing that, I chose us.